You know that feeling when you finish a movie or a book and there's that one character you just can't get out of your head? They stick with you, right? For days, sometimes even years. Well, we're going to dive into that today. We're going to break down the secret sauce of what makes a protagonist, and by extension, their whole story, totally unforgettable. So, really, it all boils down to this one question. I mean, think about it for a second. What is it about your favorite stories that really grabs you? Is it the cool sci fi world? The crazy plot twists? Well, it turns out the real answer is actually way simpler and a lot more, well, human. All right, let's start at the beginning. Section 1. Why do we even watch? What makes us lean in and care about what's happening on screen? It's all about that emotional hook. It really all comes down to one single thing: the fight. And no, I'm not talking about a big, epic punch up. Well, not just that. We're talking about the struggle, the internal battles, the external obstacles. It's watching them grapple with their own flaws, with the world around them. That's the stuff that grabs hold of us and just won't let go. I mean, just think about it. Imagine a hero who, the second things get dangerous, decides, nope, this is too hard, and just hides. How long are you going to stick with that story? Probably not very long, right? If there's no fight, there's no story. We check out. We just don't care. But now flip that. What about the retired gunman who's hung up his revolvers for good? He wants to be a better man. But then trouble comes knocking and he's forced to strap those guns back on. That internal conflict, that war between who he wants to be and what he has to do, that's pure gold. We are absolutely glued to the screen, dying to know what happens to him. Okay, so this brings us to a really important point. If the fight is what pulls us in, then it makes sense that the person in that fight is the absolute center of the story's universe. The protagonist is the destiny of the story. And that's really the definition of a protagonist, right? They're the character whose destiny we're following. Think about it. The plot, the side characters, the entire world, it all kind of revolves around them. Everything is there to test them, to change them, to push their story forward. It's why they get the most screen time, because their journey is the journey. So, what's in a name? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. And if you need some hard evidence for just how important the protagonist is, you don't have to look any further than the movie title itself. I mean, how often have you seen this? The movie is just named after them. Erin Brockovich, you know from the jump, this is her story of struggle and triumphs. Or Donnie Brasco. The title alone tells you you're about to go deep into one man's incredibly dangerous journey. Then you've got Michael Collins. His destiny isn't just part of the story, it is the story. How about a classic? Citizen Kane, an entire epic film dedicated to figuring out one single complicated man. Even something like Ninotchka, the whole narrative is built around her personal transformation. And of course, Tootsie. Look, the list goes on and on and on. It's probably endless. It just proves the point, right? The protagonist is the story. All right, section 4, who's driving the story? This is where it gets a little tricky. Because okay, it's easy when there's one main character. But what happens when you've got a dynamic duo? Who's the real protagonist then? Yeah, what about movies like Bonnie and Clyde or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? I mean, both characters feel totally essential, right? They share the screen, they're in it together. So how in the world do you figure out who's actually steering the ship? So let's put Bonnie and Clyde under the microscope. Who is the real protagonist? They're both legends, they're both on that wild ride together. But if you watch closely, one of them is the one really calling the shots, the one in the driver's seat. And here's the key. The true protagonist is the one making the decisions that actually move the story forward. Their desires get imposed on their partner. So in Bonnie and Clyde, that's Clyde. It's his choices, his ambition that propels them. And it's the exact same thing with Butch Cassidy. Butch is the ideas guy, the planner. Sundance follows. That makes Butch the protagonist. Okay, so let's bring this all home. Section 5, the takeaway. What does all this mean for you, especially if you're a writer trying to craft a powerful story? Let's boil it all down. Here it is, plain and simple. Your protagonist is the engine of your story, period. Their fight, that's the fuel that gets the audience hooked. Their destiny, that's the track the whole plot runs on. And their decisions, their choices are what actually make the whole thing go. If your protagonist isn't making active choices, your story is dead in the water. So that leaves us with one last really important question for you to think about. Whether you're working on your own story or just rewatching an old favorite, ask yourself, who is the real protagonist here?
Who is the one making the decisions that change the game? Find that person, and you've just found the beating heart of your story.